Settle in. Tonight I'm bringing you 4 unsettling 4chan posts that honestly kept me up. Drop a like and subscribe if you want more. Let's get into it. And if these stories pull you in, come join the Lost Footage Club, our private community where members share their own disturbing finds. The link is in the description. There's a food truck on my drive home with a silent queue at 2 in the morning, and I just found out Spencer stops there. She had driven this same road for years. I clean teeth for a living, so most of my days finish the same way. I work the late list at the evening clinic, scale and polish until the last patient is gone, and then I drive the same 40-minute stretch of A road back to the house. Spencer and I are still paying off. I know every bend of it. There is one lay-by just before my junction, and a few weeks ago a food truck turned up in it. Nothing strange about that. There's a laminated sheet zip-tied to the serving hatch, the kind every burger van has, and from the car at that speed, it just reads as a menu board. I clocked it the way I clock any new billboard, once, and then I stopped noticing it. What I did notice over the following nights was the queue. Always people standing there at 2 in the morning, 6 or 8 of them, never any fuss. I assumed it was taxi drivers or shift workers, the same as me, wanting a coffee before the last stretch home. I didn't much like slowing for it, so mostly I didn't. Tonight, the road did not let her drive past. The lights at the junction held me longer than usual, right alongside the lay-by, close enough to actually look. And the more I looked, the less any of it added up. The hatch was shut. It was dark inside, no light, no little glow off a fryer, and there was no smell of cooking at all, which you always get off those vans, even from the road. I counted 8 people in the queue. Not one of them was talking, not one was on a phone, and none of them was holding food or a cup or anything. They were just standing, very still, facing the hatch, waiting to be served by a van that plainly was not open. And the sheet, the menu I had glanced at for weeks, was not a menu. Zip-tied flat under the hatch, laminated so it wouldn't run in the rain, it was a list of names, handwritten, one under another. I only had the length of a red light to read it, and then the lights changed, and I drove home and told myself I had imagined how long it was. She only wanted him to tell her it was nothing. I told Spencer about it the next morning, over coffee, feeling a bit stupid saying it out loud. A food van with a queue and nobody actually buying anything. He didn't laugh. He looked at me over his mug and said, very evenly, that he knew the one I meant, that there's always somebody parked along that stretch, and that the sensible thing was to leave it well alone. Don't stop, he said. And whatever you do, don't make eye contact with the people in the queue. He said it the way he tells me to keep the doors locked when I'm on the late list, like a man looking after the person he lives with. I remember thinking it was sweet, in a slightly overcareful way. He's like that about that road, always has been. I finished my coffee and went to bed and didn't think about it again for a few days. He had the answer ready before she finished asking. Then the junction caught me again. Same red light, same lay-by on my left, and this time I made myself read the sheet under the hatch properly. It was laminated flat, the way you'd protect something you meant to leave out in the rain for a long while. And it wasn't a menu. There were no prices, no little photos of burgers, nothing you could order off it. It was a column of names, handwritten, one under the other, running most of the way down the page. I told myself it was a staff rota, the shift pattern for whoever runs the thing, or a standing order list, regulars who'd paid ahead. People keep lists like that. It is the most ordinary object in the world, a list of names. I read as far down as I could before the lights changed, and then I drove the rest of the way home and told Spencer nothing, because there was nothing to tell. A list on a van, that was all it was. In the comments, someone wrote, menus get swapped out every week. Nobody laminates a menu. You laminate a list you intend to keep for a long time, and you only keep a list of people. One commenter, Burnt Toast Anon, said, Spencer knew the rule about not looking before you ever told him about the truck. Sit with that. He didn't learn it from you. A top comment reads, my old man drove nights on that same class of road for 20 years and swore there was a coffee van that was never twice in the same lay-by. We laughed at him until he stopped driving. He never told us why. She had already stopped using the junction. I told myself it was the roadworks and not the van. But I switched to the longer way home, the one that loops through the village. It adds 10 minutes and keeps me off that stretch of the A road entirely. It worked for about a week. Then one night, coming through the village well past 2, past the green and the shut-up pub, there it was, the same van. Same dark hatch, same laminated sheet zip-tied under it, parked up outside the church hall with the queue already formed on the pavement. 6 of them this time, facing the hatch, none of them moving. I had not told a single person I had changed my route. There was no earthly reason for that van to be sitting there a mile off its lay-by on the one night I happened to come a different way. I did not slow down. I kept both hands on the wheel and looked straight ahead, the way Spencer told me to, and I drove home. The longer road had not lost it. I brought it up at work the next evening, trying to make it sound like a funny thing. Jessica drives in from the same direction I do, so I asked if she'd ever clocked the coffee van out on the A road. She said, of course, it's been parked along there for years. Everyone knows the one. Years. I've driven that road nearly every night for the best part of a decade, and I only started seeing it a few weeks ago. Either it was always there and I looked straight through it, or she was thinking of a different van. I didn't push it. 2 nights after that, I turned into my own road, the quiet one. Houses either side, and there is a little lay-by near the top I have never once seen a car parked in. The van was in it, barely a mile from my own front door, hatch shut, the sheet under it, and 3 people standing on the verge in the dark waiting to be served. I did not stop. I don't think it was ever there for coffee. Whatever stood in that line now knew the way to her door. 2 weeks in, she had stopped pretending she was asleep. She came back to write it down while the house was still dark. Spencer took the car, and my name is on the sheet now. I have not slept properly in about a week, and I am typing this at 3:30 with the landing light on because I have to put it somewhere. Spencer swears he has never once driven home that way. He says he takes the ring road, always has, and I have no honest reason not to believe him. He has never given me one, but the van keeps finding me, and last night, stopped at the junction, I finally let myself read all the way to the bottom of that laminated sheet. There was a name inked in at the very end that had not been there before. It was mine. My own name, in handwriting I did not recognize, at the foot of a list zip-tied to a food van. I know exactly how that reads, so I did the sensible thing and I checked. I sat through 2 full changes of the lights and read the bottom line twice, maybe 3 times, and it was still there. Amber, last of all, in fresh ink, under people I have never met. He said it before she could. Then this evening something happened that I cannot talk my way out of. We were having dinner, I was quiet, and Spencer reached across and told me, gently, the way you'd settle a child, that I should never stop for that van and never make eye contact with the people in the queue, word for word. The exact sentence he handed me weeks ago, same order, same soft voice, as if he were reminding me of something we both already knew. I had not mentioned the van in days. I had said nothing at all. He finished it and asked if I wanted more rice, and I said I was fine, and I came upstairs and I have been sitting here since. Here is the thing I keep coming back to. I have a dash cam. It runs off the battery and it saves everything to a little card, and it has sat in that windscreen the whole time through every one of these nights. Whatever has been going on out on that road, it has been filming it. Tomorrow, before he is awake, I am going down to the car and I am taking the card out. She waited until his side of the bed was empty. I got the card out before he woke and put it in my laptop at the kitchen table. There were clips on it I had never made. Every one stamped past 2 in the morning. On nights, I know for a fact I was asleep upstairs because I remember going up and I remember waking to the alarm. The camera was pointing out through my own windscreen, from inside my own car, parked in that lay-by with the engine off. There was the van, there was the queue, 8 of them, still as anything. And on one clip, when a lorry went past and threw its lights across the hatch, the dark glass caught a face reflected back out of the driver's seat. It was Spencer, sitting where I sit, watching the line. He has been taking the car out for months while I slept. His rule, the one that sounded like a man keeping me safe, was so that I would never look hard enough to find him standing among the 8. The sheet had never been a menu, and it had never been a rota. I understand it now. It is the queue itself, every name that has to stand in that line, and nobody leaves until their name is crossed off. Spencer's has been on it for months. Near the top, uncrossed. I know, because when I went to wake him, the bed was empty and the car was gone off the drive, and lying flat on the kitchen table, laminated, was a copy of that list. My name is at the bottom now, in fresh ink, under people I have never met. I cannot phone anyone. Standing at a food van is not a crime. The house is half his. The only car we own is gone with him, and it is the middle of the night. My phone just lit up. It is Caleb, his brother, and all it says is, "Save your place. We'll come and get you soon." Very Good Doggo commented, "Whatever you do, do not let that card out of your sight." Copy it twice. Email it to yourself, hand a copy to Jessica in person. Footage like that has a way of going missing. In the comments, someone wrote, "The sheet turning up on her own kitchen table is the part that would put me in the car and gone tonight." A top comment reads, "Not 4. She can't read the thread. The house is half his. The one car is gone with him, and there's no crime to phone in. Nowhere to go, nothing to report, no money to run on. That's the whole trap, and he built it slowly. Keep her name somewhere safe tonight. The next road you hear about looks a lot like hers. My nephew's imaginary friend keeps knowing who's coming to visit before I do. He starts where these always start, with the ordinary version of the week. I mind my brother Garrett's boy 3 nights a week. Nolan is 5, and Garrett has nobody else right now because the divorce has eaten every spare hour he owns. So the kid stays over in my flat on the top floor while I do the parts of parenting that are just company and toast. I am 26. I work as a librarian and I live alone, so the arrangement suits me more than I admit. Nolan is easy. He colors at the kitchen table for hours and narrates the whole thing to himself. Lately, he has an imaginary friend. He says he met him on the stairwell, somewhere between the ground floor and mine, and the two of them talk while I am carrying the shopping up. Normal kid stuff. The only detail I even registered was the sweets. Nolan kept mentioning that his friend gives him butterscotch, the little ones in the gold twist wrappers, and I assumed some neighbor had a bowl of leftover party candy and a soft spot for a small boy. I told him not to take food from people he doesn't know. He said he does know him. Fair enough, a kid being wrong about a night is nothing. It was the other outcome I wasn't ready for. Last Sunday, he was at the table with the good crayons, the ones I keep up on the shelf, and without looking up, he told me his friend said Daddy was coming tonight. I said, "No, Daddy comes tomorrow. That's the plan. That's why you packed your bag." Nolan just shrugged and kept coloring the way kids do when they are more certain than you are. I didn't think about it again. I made the toast. We watched something with dogs in it. 2 hours later, the buzzer went. It was Garrett, downstairs, asking to come up. His shift had been cancelled at the last minute and he had driven straight over to grab Nolan a night early. Nobody had told me. There was no text, no call, nothing in our thread, but the old plan from Friday. I let him up and I stood in the doorway feeling like I had missed a page somewhere. Garrett thought it was funny that Nolan already had his shoes on by the door. He picks the story back up a few days on, still calling it coincidence. After the thing with Garrett showing up early, I told myself, kids say 100 things a day and sometimes one of them lands. That's just maths. Then, on Tuesday, Nolan was at the table with the good crayons and said his friend told him Aunt was coming with the yellow cake. We don't do surprise visits in this family, and my mother's sister lives 2 hours out, so I said we'd see. That evening, she buzzed up with a lemon cake she'd baked, passing through for a hospital appointment nobody had bothered to mention to me. I let her in. Nolan didn't even look up. When I asked how he knew about the cake, he said his friend told him, same as always, and went back to coloring like I'd asked what color the sky was. 2 days after that, he said the cousin was coming, the one who never visits, the one Garrett barely speaks to. By lunchtime, Garrett had texted asking if the cousin could drop divorce paperwork at mine because it was closer. Same shape every time. The kid knew a beat before my phone did. A child guessing one visit is luck. He had started keeping score. Here's the part I keep turning over, and it's probably nothing. In the first week, Nolan stayed with me. We were hauling the shopping up, and he waved at Tyler, the caretaker, who was on a stepladder swapping the landing bulb. Big cheerful wave, shouted down the stairs that's my friend. I thought it was sweet, honestly. A 5-year-old being kind to the man who mops the halls and hardly says 2 words to anyone, and Tyler gave him the little nod you give a kid. I didn't file it under anything. There was nothing to file. But after the cousin, I opened the notes on my phone and started writing the visits down. Just the date, who turned up, and whether Nolan called it before I knew. I told myself I was being a careful uncle, 3 for 3, and I hadn't warned him about one of them. None of it scared me, that's the honest bit. It was more that I felt slightly stupid, like everyone had a group chat I wasn't in, and a 5-year-old was reading it out to me. He comes back to it a week on, and the tone has changed. I need to walk back what I said about the sweets being harmless, because I stopped thinking that on a Thursday. I went up to the roof to bring in the washing, which nobody uses but me because you need my key for that door, and there was a gold twist wrapper caught in the drain gutter by the water tank. Butterscotch, the little kind. I stood there telling myself Nolan must have carried it up. Except Nolan has never once been on that roof. I don't let him near the door, and the wrapper was folded neat the way an adult folds one, not crushed the way a 5-year-old does. I put it in my pocket and I didn't like it. After that, I started seeing them, 1 on the 7th floor landing outside my flat, 2 more on the stairs going down, spaced out like someone had walked and dropped them. And then, the part I keep coming back to, 3 of them on the ground floor tucked against the bottom of Tyler's door, the caretaker, the one Nolan waved at and called his friend, right there on the mat where he'd see them. I checked twice. I might be misremembering how many, but it was more than 1, and they were the exact same brand. The candy had never been a gift. It was a trail, and it ended at a grown man's door. So here is what I think is happening, and typing it makes me feel sick. A man in this building has been getting my nephew alone on the stairwell, feeding him butterscotch, and feeding him the visitor list, so a 5-year-old comes back to me sounding like he can see the future. The predictions were never Nolan. Somebody downstairs knows who buzzes in before I do, and has been coaching a small boy to repeat it, 1 sweet at a time, until the kid trusts him more than he trusts me. I have gone over the maths of it 100 times since that Thursday, and it keeps landing on the same door on the ground floor. I don't have proof yet. What I have is a jacket pocket full of gold wrappers, and a plan to be on that stairwell tomorrow evening when Garrett drops him, standing where I can see the ground floor door. In the comments, someone wrote, "Wrappers folded neat, laid outside one specific door, near a kid he already calls his friend. Do not do the stakeout alone. Take your brother." Brackish TV commented, "Did you ever actually talk to the caretaker before all this?" The poster responded with, "Once, the week before. I asked him straight why he kept turning up near Nolan, and he just said, 'Ask your dad,' and smiled, and I thought he was being a smug prick. He was older than Garrett. I didn't clock any of it at the time." A top comment reads, "The roof is the part that gets me. Your key, your door, nobody else goes up. That rapper didn't walk there." He comes back the night after the stakeout, and it did not go the way he'd built it up to. I did the stakeout, Garrett dropped Nolan on Friday, and I sent them up ahead of me, then stood on the half landing above the ground floor where I could watch Tyler's door and the stairs at the same time. I had it all worked out, what I'd say, how I'd keep my voice level. Tyler came out at 7 with a bin bag, and I just asked him, straight out, why my nephew, why the sweets, why the wrappers at his door. He looked at me like I'd grown a second head and said he barely spoke to the boy, that he knew who was coming because he works the door intercom and buzzed people through. That's the whole job. He said he'd never given Nolan a sweet in his life. He said it tired, not guilty, and he let me look past him into his flat, and there was no butterscotch anywhere, no bowl, nothing. I stood in his doorway feeling like the worst person in the building. The wrappers by his door weren't from him. Someone had left them, or the wind had pushed them there, and I'd built a whole monster out of it. He posted the rest as an update a few days on, and it reads like he typed it fast. Garrett had the caretaker removed and won't pick up my calls, so I made it worse. I called Garrett that night and told him everything. The wrappers, the door, the whole theory, and I expected him to talk me down. Instead, he went quiet, and then he went cold. By the next morning, he'd been to the letting office and Tyler was gone, barred from the building overnight, and Garrett wouldn't tell me what he'd said to make that happen. He hasn't answered since. 4 calls, nothing back. Here is why I'm posting again at 2 in the morning. I couldn't sleep, so I went down to my storage cage in the basement to dig out Dad's old shoebox, the one with his papers, because I had this idea of checking who used to caretake the building years back, whether there was some record of it. Dad's been gone 3 years. I lifted the lid, and on top of the deeds and the funeral cards, there was a photo I have never seen in my life. A boy, maybe 7, on a beach somewhere. I don't know him. I have no cousins that age. I'm sitting on the basement floor holding it, and I don't want to turn it over. He picks it up where he set it down, with the box open on the basement floor. I turn the photo over. On the back, in my father's handwriting, there was a first name and a year, and the name was Tyler. Further down in the box under the deeds, there was a Father's Day card, the kind a small child folds and glues at school. It was signed Tyler in big wobbly letters, and my father had written a line beneath it in the same hand I know from every birthday card he ever gave me. Tucked in the fold, flattened almost to nothing, was a gold twist wrapper, butterscotch. It came back to me all at once. My father carried those his whole life, every coat pocket, every glove box, the exact brand, the little gold ones. I always thought that was just his sweet a habit. It was never a stranger on the stairwell handing Nolan candy to seem magic. Tyler is my father's son, the one he kept off the books. And he had been giving my nephew the one sweet our father always carried, because it was the only thing of his he was ever allowed to pass on. He took it to Garrett, expecting him to sit down. He didn't. I brought the box up to Garrett the next day, the photo and the card, and he looked at it for maybe 3 seconds. He told me he'd known since the funeral that the solicitor had flagged another name against the estate and he'd paid to keep it quiet, and he'd never planned to tell me because, as far as he was concerned, there was nothing to tell. I asked if that was why he'd had Tyler barred overnight, a man who'd broken no law by talking to his own relative's kid. He didn't answer that one. He just said Nolan wouldn't be staying with me for a while, that it was easier all round. He hasn't dropped him since. I lost my brother in about 4 minutes, and I lost the father I'd been carrying for 26 years, and I lost being the uncle a 5-year-old gets left with 3 nights a week. Nolan keeps asking Garrett where his friend went. Nobody has told him a single thing. A top comment reads, Garrett knew at the funeral and said nothing for years. He's the horror story here, not the caretaker. A user named Brackish TV wrote, did you ever actually talk to the caretaker before the box? Face to face? And the original poster replied, once? The week before? I asked him straight why he kept turning up near Nolan, and he just said, ask your dad, and smiled. And I thought he was being a smug prick. He was older than Garrett. He'd been calling our father Dad longer than either of us had been alive. In the comments, someone wrote, please tell me somebody told Nolan something. Kids remember the ones who vanish. The next one comes from a woman whose sister moved back home, if you can call the thing in the spare room her sister. Her mum was dying, and every night a phone that wasn't in our room rang at 4:17. Grace's mother went into the hospice at the end of July, and it was the only hospice in the town where Grace grew up, about 3 hours north of where we live. We packed for a week and ended up staying for the rest of it. There is exactly one inn in that town, and we took room 214 because that was the room they gave the people who were going to be there a while. I am a paralegal, so I asked the boring questions at the desk out of pure habit. Was there a landline in the room in case my phone died overnight and someone from the hospice needed us? The woman at the desk said no, not on this floor. They had pulled all the wiring during a renovation that ran out of money last year and never started up again. The whole second floor was half empty. The room right next to ours, 216, was not even booked, she told me. Nobody was in it. On the wall by the wardrobe, there was a white painted connecting door into 216 with a little brass slide bolt on our side. I checked, it was bolted, the way you check a thing once and then forget it, and I forgot it. Nothing in that room asked to be remembered. That first night, I woke up because a phone was ringing. Not my phone, which was face down on silent on the nightstand, and not Grace's, which was charging on her side of the bed. It was an actual phone, the old kind of ring, and I lay there trying to work out where in the room it could be coming from because we did not have one. Then I understood it was not in the room at all. It was on the other side of the wall by the wardrobe, behind that white connecting door in 216. I looked at my phone to check the time before I could stop myself. It was 4:17 in the morning. I got up and stood by the bolt with my hand flat on the painted wood, and I could feel it faintly the way you feel a washing machine 2 floors down. The room the desk had told me twice was empty. On the floor they swore had no phones, had a phone in it, and it was ringing. It stopped after maybe 8 rings. I kept standing there a while. Grace was awake behind me. I could tell from her breathing, though she did not say anything yet. That first night, once the ringing stopped, Grace pulled me back down under the covers. She was more awake than she was letting on, and she whispered that it was just this creepy old place, that old inns do that, the pipes and the dead wiring, and I should stop lying there listening for it. Then she stayed awake, stroking my hair, the way she does when I cannot switch my head off, until I dropped under again. This is going to sound stupid, but I actually felt looked after. Her mother was the one dying 3 streets away, and she was the one comforting me about a noise on a wall. In the morning, it was nothing. We had eggs downstairs, we drove over, we did the long, slow sitting that those days are made of, the kind where you count the ceiling tiles and pretend to read, and I did not think about the connecting door once, until we were back in the car. Then it was 4:17 again. The second night, it came back at exactly 4:17. I know the time because the first thing I did was grab my phone, and I had switched it all the way off before bed this time, so it was not me, not some alarm I had set and forgotten. The same old ring 8 or 9 times, out of the white door by the wardrobe, then nothing at all, not even a click. Next morning, I went down and asked about 216 again. Different woman at the desk, same answer, said flat like she had said it before. Nobody booked in it, no phone anywhere on the floor, and she gave me a careful sort of look when I kept at it. The look you give a man you have decided is not sleeping right. So I started writing it down. A cheap notebook from the shop by the hospice, 1 line a night, the date, and 4:17, and how many rings. Grace found it on the 3rd day. She did not get angry. She just sat on the edge of the bed, more tired than I have ever seen her, and asked me, quietly, please not to turn her mum's dying into a ghost story. I put the notebook in my bag. I kept writing in it anyway. By the 4th night I woke, before the first ring on my own. I found the blurb on the 4th day, sitting in the hospice car park with bad signal. A guest had died in this wing of the inn years back, a heart thing in the night, and the small local paper had 2 paragraphs on it because he had been someone's uncle who used to run the hardware shop. I do not know what I wanted from that, but I read it 4 or 5 times. That night, I did something I am not proud of. I took the roll of packing tape from Grace's boot and taped the white connecting door shut, top to bottom, over the brass bolt and along the whole seam, so that if anything opened it, I would see the tape torn. Then I stood my phone up against the lamp and set it to record audio all night, and I lay there not sleeping. Grace watched me do every bit of it. She had gone sharp by then, sharper than the tiredness alone explained, and she said flat that I needed to hear myself. Then she rolled over. It came at the hour it always came. At 4:17 the ring started, and this time I was already sitting up with the phone in my hand, so there was no question of me half dreaming it. The old double ring, 8 times, and it was not coming from inside the room. It was coming out of the wall by the wardrobe, out of that white door, the dead space I had checked once on the first night and then forgotten about completely. I put my palm flat on the tape and I could feel it move under my hand, the faint buzz of a phone ringing 4 feet away, in a room the desk swore was empty and swore had no line running into it. In the morning the tape was still whole, not a corner lifted, but the recording had it, clean, the ring, and then the long silence after. I played it for Grace at breakfast, one earbud held across the table. She listened to the whole thing, set it down, and asked me how long I was going to keep doing this to us. Her voice did not shake at all. A top comment reads, "Room with no phone but the phone rings." Classic wing death haunting. My money was on a nurse who died mid-shift. They always come back on the clock. Not a skeptic, but commented, "Sorry man, but a woman getting up at the same time every night in a strange town where she grew up is not a ghost." I knew where this was going by paragraph 3. In the comments, someone wrote, "Did you ever actually try the connecting door yourself? Or was it bolted the whole time?" The reply to that was, "The bolt on my side was drawn every night. I checked it before bed and again after each ring, and it never once moved. That was half of why I was so sure it was something I could not explain." He had stopped being frightened by it. That was somehow the worst part. The last week ran together. Grace stopped sleeping in any real way, lying down near midnight and up before me. And by then I had stopped setting an alarm because I woke on my own a minute or two before 4:17 every single time, like my body had learned the shape of the wait. The call never missed, not once in the whole stay. Some nights the hospice rang Grace's actual mobile around 3. A nurse saying, "Come now," and we drove over in the dark and sat, and nothing came, and we lay down again, and at 4:17 the old ring started through the wall like nothing had moved. I stopped telling Grace about it. She had enough on her. Her mother could barely talk by then, and Grace spent the days holding a hand that did not hold back, while I did the small, useful things, the parking, the coffee, the calling of her sister Megan back home with the updates. One thing I kept to myself. On our last morning, whatever else happened, I was going to go down to that desk and ask them to print me everything. 4 days passed, and then he came back to the thread. What the front desk printed when we checked out. I did not think I would be writing again this soon. Grace's mother died on the Thursday, early in the afternoon, with Grace holding her hand and me out in the corridor leaving them the room. I will not put the rest of that day here. We stayed the last few nights for the arrangements, and the ring kept its time straight through to the morning we left, which I know sounds impossible after everything else I have told you. On the way out, I did the thing I had promised myself. I asked the woman at the desk for a full itemized bill, every line of it, and anything they had logged for the floor while she was in there. She did not blink. She turned the screen away, tapped for a while, and slid 2 warm sheets across the counter. I read them in the car before Grace came out of the lobby. I still cannot really explain, in order, what those 2 pages did to me. So I am going to type out exactly what was printed and let you read it the way I read it. He read them in the car with the engine off, before Grace came out of the lobby. The first page was our ordinary bill, room 214, the breakfasts, a parking charge. The second page was for room 216. It was booked for the full stay. Every single night we were there, under Grace's own name, her card, the home address off our lease. Under that, there was a line I read maybe 10 times before it went in. 9 automated wake-up calls, every one of them set for 4:17. And then the keycard log for that door, a neat little column. 216 entered at 4:16, 4:16, 4:16, night after night. 1 clean minute before the phone I had taped a door shut against would start to ring. That was Cody letting himself in a minute early. Her ex from this town, the one she never really finished with. Grace never needed a card at all. The bolt on my side was drawn every night. I checked it until it was a sickness, but her side, the 216 side, was never bolted once. She went through the wall while the ring I sat there recording covered the gap she left in the bed. So that was what the door had always been. I sat with it a while. That first night, when she pulled me back down and stayed awake stroking my hair until I fell asleep, I had lain there feeling looked after. She was not settling me. She was making sure I was gone before she got up. I did not say any of this to her. Her mother died that Thursday, early in the afternoon, and I stood at the funeral 3 days after with my grandmother's ring in my jacket, the one I had carried for a fortnight. About 2 weeks off, asking her. I never took it out of the pocket. I drove us home. I kept my name on the lease, and I still pay half of it, and I moved my things out over a weekend she spent at Megan's, and I never once told her what the desk had printed. The only piece I cannot set down is the small one. Nobody gets to tell me do not worry, I already checked ever again, and I would not believe them now if they tried. I wake on my own at 4:17 most nights, a minute before anything could ring, and I lie there until it does not. A user named GreenlightGo wrote, "Everyone yelling ghost, and the automated wake-up service was sitting in the billing system the whole time. The most haunted thing in that inn was accounts receivable." A top comment reads, Did you ever actually try the connecting door yourself, or was it bolted the whole time? The poster responded with, "The bolt on my side was drawn every night. I was obsessive about it. After checkout, I went back up and tried it from the 216 side. Her side was never bolted, not once. I had been sleeping 4 feet from a door that only I thought was closed. Whatever you can bolt tonight, bolt it, then stay with me for the next one." My roommate paid for my wellness retreat. Then I found the suture hidden in the bruise. I am 37 and I cut hair for a living. And this spring the salon went so quiet that I stopped opening the mail. My credit was already wrecked from a dead season. I was weeks behind on rent. And 4 months ago I had signed a 12-month lease on the condo with my roommate Brooke. So there was no quiet way out of any of it. Brooke was the sister I never had. She covered my half of the rent twice without ever making it a thing. So when she came home one night and folded a paper into my hands, a free scholarship to a weekend restoration lodge, some wellness spot she said she couldn't use, I actually cried at the kitchen table. I should mention, she had been tired for months by then. She had started wearing a headscarf, she had appointments she never really explained, and I was so wrapped up in my own money panic that I half noticed all of it and asked nothing. I told myself she just needed the rest too. She drove up there grateful. That is the part she keeps going back to. The lodge was calm and clean, and everyone spoke in that soft way. Every morning, an orderly named Marcus drew a little blood from my arm, and afterward, the practitioner, Vanessa, pressed a small colored adhesive dot onto my laminated restoration card, like a gold star on a kid's chart. Gray first, then green, then higher up. Everyone was climbing toward gold by the last day, comparing cards over breakfast, and I liked it more than I want to admit. On the second day, they had me booked for a premium deep cupping. I remember almost none of it. I was drowsy walking in, drowsier coming out, and I slept the whole drive home, sore in a way I put down to the suction. That night, I went to shower. I was undressing in front of the mirror when I saw the cupping bruise low on my back, and sitting in the dead center of it was a neat, closed suture. One single stitch. A puncture no suction cup on earth could leave, in a spot on my own body I cannot remember anyone touching, and under it a deep grinding ache in the hip that has not let up since. The card is still on the fridge, held up by a magnet shaped like a lemon that came with the condo. I did not want to look at it, and I could not stop looking at it. For 3 days, I told myself the dot in the last box was just a bad color print, because the whole point of the weekend was climbing, gray to green to gold, and everyone at breakfast had been comparing how high they got. Mine was not gold. Mine was a deep red that is not anywhere on the ladder they painted on the lodge wall, not a rung on it, not a shade near it. I stood in that kitchen with the coffee going cold and worked it the only way that made sense to me. A red that is off the chart is not a prize. It is a flag. Something in the blood they took from my arm every morning came back wrong enough that they marked me apart from everyone else, and then they smiled and sent me home. She kept tilting it toward the window like the color might decide to change. In the same welcome folder, there was a second card, thicker, for a phase 2 consultation back in the city, a date and an address and a suite number, and nothing else. I found the same card in a photo another guest posted to the group chat, and another under that, and another. Every scholarship guest got one. The paying guests, as far as I could tell from the photos, did not. That was the night I stopped thinking wellness and started thinking about what a place like that actually wants from broke people it feeds and screens for free. I am not going to that appointment. The hip has not eased once since I got back. I change the little dressing over the stitch in the bathroom mirror every morning, turning to see my own back, and the bone under it aches deep and flat and steady, the way a tooth aches, all day and into my sleep. Cupping does not do that. I keep telling myself, cupping does not do that. In the comments, someone wrote, "You found a stitch you have zero memory of, and your first theory was health flag. Olivia, sweetheart, please raise your standards for the people you let feed you for free. Burner, not yours." Commented, DT. Whatever that red dot means, the answer is not to drive to the address they handed you for the follow-up. Do not walk back into that building. Cancel it and block the number. A top comment reads, "Only the free guests got a follow-up card, and the paying ones didn't. You weren't a guest there. You were the reason the weekend existed. I keep going back over last winter now, trying to find the moment this actually started, and I land on the same stupid thing every time. Brooke came home with one of those free health screen kits, a cheek swab in a little tube, and said it was a treat and I should stop being so proud about money. She swabbed the inside of my cheek at the kitchen table herself and mailed it off for me because I kept forgetting to. A few weeks later, she read the result off her phone and laughed, said, we are not even a match. And I laughed too, because I figured it was some compatibility quiz gimmick, the kind that tells you your ideal roommate or whatever. I did not think about it again until this week. What I did notice the whole time was how tired she kept getting, the scarf she started wearing, the appointments she never really explained, the ones I told myself were nothing because I did not want them to be something. I spent all spring worrying about rent while she was plainly getting sick next to me, and I never once sat down and asked her what was really wrong. For months, she had read the whole thing as bad luck landing on someone she loved. Marcus is the orderly who took my blood every morning. Quiet, the kind of person who apologizes for the needle before he uses it. He found me somehow and messaged me 2 nights ago after 11, and it has not really stopped since. He keeps circling the same thing without ever saying it flat. He says the phase 2 cards are theater, that the appointment in the city is not where anything happens, that guests are sent home told to be afraid of a future that already happened to them. I asked him what that was supposed to mean, and he went silent for an hour, then wrote that he cannot stay at that place, that he has been trying to leave for weeks. Every time I push, he backs off and says he should not be talking to me at all. The hip has stopped being a question by now and turned into a fact I plan my day around. I sleep on the other side. Getting up out of a low chair, there is a grinding down in the bone that I still keep filing under a cupping that went too hard, because the other explanation has not fully landed in my head yet. She posted the update the next night. It is short, the way bad news is short. Marcus went back for the drawer and it was already empty, so Marcus quit. He walked in yesterday morning, handed back his badge, and told Vanessa he was done. And then instead of leaving, he went down the corridor to the treatment room one more time because I had asked him for something I could actually hold in my hand. He knew which drawer. He had watched them open it every day that weekend. The vials with the red tags, the little files clipped to each one, the log they wrote in after every drawer. He got it open and it was empty. Not tidied, not thinned out, empty and wiped down. A fresh liner in the bottom, and the labels on the front already peeled off and reprinted with something else. Whatever was in there is gone, and it went before either of us knew to want it. He texted me from the parking lot just, "It is clean, I am sorry," and I sat down on the bathroom floor and read that maybe 10 times. So she sat there on the tile and counted what she actually had left. I have been going at this like there is somewhere to take it, and last night I finally made myself add up what I have. One photo Marcus swears he took on the second day, from a man who is now quit and walked out the front door. A stitch that healed into a pale line, over a bruise I signed a form agreeing to, because somewhere in that packet I initialed a line about tissue sampling that I never actually read. A red dot on a laminated card stuck to my own fridge with a lemon magnet. Nobody is looking at that lodge. Nothing is under suspicion, so nothing gets a warrant, and by the time anyone thought to ask, that drawer has already been clean for weeks. And every part of my life right now runs straight through the condo I share with Brooke, the lease with my name sitting next to hers, 4 months in and 8 still to go, the credit I already wrecked, a penalty I could not cover in a year to get out early. There is no version of this where I just walk. It is Brooke or it is nothing. I was still sitting with that when my phone lit up again. Marcus, one more line. He says the drawer is gone, but he still has the one thing he carried out of that room before he left. The thing he carried out was a photograph. Marcus sent the photo at 4 in the morning and I have not slept since. One picture, taken on the second day, of the open drawer in that treatment room. Rows of blood vials with red tags, each one clipped to a little file card with a name and a date. Across the front lies a handwritten log, a column of names, and mine is on it, next to the second day of that weekend, next to a word I had to look up. Aspiration. I dug out the packet I brought home and found the line I initialed without reading, tissue and cellular sampling, including marrow aspiration, my own initials in my own hand, and the dot. On their records, the red one was never a warning that something in my blood was wrong. Red meant matched donor, collection complete. Every morning, Vanessa was not giving me a gold star. She was updating a file that already had a recipient's name at the top. The card clipped to my vials had that name on it. It was Brooke. Brooke was asleep down the hall while she read it. I keep landing on the tired thing. All those months she was pale under the scarf, going to appointments she waved off, and I told myself she just needed the rest, same as me. She was being readied. The winter swab was the part I never got to see. That free health screen she mailed off herself and read to me off her phone, "We are not even a match," laughing. It was never a genealogy toy, it was typing the two of us. And the true answer was the exact opposite of the one she said out loud. She is the match. The warmth, the covered rent, the scholarship she could not use, all of it was growing a donor she could keep in the next room. I was not the sister she never had. I was the spare. And I cannot even leave. My name sits next to hers on 8 more months of a lease I cannot break with the credit I already wrecked. The card is still on the fridge under the lemon magnet, the red dot I spent one weekend proud of, back when I thought I had finally reached the top of something. In the comments, someone wrote, "Serious question. Did you ever actually hold those ancestry results in your own hands?" And the original poster replied, "No." She read them to me off her phone at the kitchen counter, said 0% cousins, and told me she'd already tossed the printout in the recycling. I went and dug through the bin that night to keep it. There was no printout in there. There never was one. One commenter, quiet part loud, said, "Everyone's about to scream, call the cops." The drawer is spotless already, and then it's your word, your bruise, your initials. That photo is the only thing keeping this real. Back it up in 3 places and guard it. Thank you for sitting up through all of these with me tonight. If one of them stays with you after the screen goes dark, leave a word below before you sleep.